Hey folks, it's Colin Fraser. Welcome back welcome back to the Rasa tutorial and design series. Now this is where I get to have a little bit of fun once again and take a look at a mock-up situation or situations that I sometimes run into when doing customer support. And that is, hey Colin, I've got a bunch of menu items at the top of my page and I looked at my site on my client's or my friend's computer. They have a smaller computer than I do, and I noticed that my menu buttons are scrunched in or overlapping or doing something that is inappropriate. In this case, I've added like 5 or 6 extra menu items, and I've set it up in such a way that it sort of overlaps the search bar over here on the right hand side at a lower resolution. Now if we go just a little bit lower, it actually triggers the what we call the mobile view, so that the much easier mobile menu shows up here anyways. But at just a slightly higher resolution, we get this overlapping effect. Now there's a lot of things we can do. The most obvious is reduce the number of buttons or reduce the number of characters in the buttons. What I'll see quite often is instead of just a single or 2 words for the button name, there's 3 or 4 words, very descriptive but also very long. Keep in mind when creating menus with buttons, people don't really read. Your visitors don't really read, they scan. So use as few words as possible to get the message across as effectively as possible. Using a lot of words isn't necessarily going to be a good thing, depending on what, of course, those words are. Now, with that said, there are some things you can do if you absolutely have to have a certain number of buttons, and those buttons need to have a certain number of characters. Okay, especially when your client says, this is what I want, make it happen. So, with that said, what we can do is use our Google Chrome here or Firefox. I don't recommend IE for any development. It's great for previewing, but not for developing at this case or this stage. But Chrome, we're going to do this inspect. Okay, and what we're looking for is we can now hover over an item and we can look for things like paddings and margins and sort of see what sort of things we can do via CSS in order to reduce the amount of space between each of the button names. In other words, we're going to try and scrunch things up a little bit here just by adjusting some of the CSS properties or the style properties. Now I'm also going to detach this so I have more room to work with. Typically what I'll do is I'll have this in another browser on another monitor. But in this case for the demo, what I'll do is I'll just detach it so I can squiggle it down a little bit, and it gives me a little bit more room to work with, and I can read the styles a little bit better. And the cool thing about using the inspect element in Chrome is you can adjust things on the fly to see what they look like before you commit to them by actually updating the style sheet. And it saves you having to go back and forth. So here's what I mean. We have selected a link, right? We've just sort of put our cursor over, we've inspect, it selects that element for us, right? And it shows the styles over here in the style panel. Now what we're looking for is a padding or a margin. And here is the padding right here. And basically the way padding works when we're using shorthand is its top is the first number, the next number is right, as in this is 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and 9 o'clock, or top, right, bottom, and left. Okay, now the right padding is set to 15 pixels and so is the left. So if we adjust those two paddings, let's be drastic, let's take it down to 5 pixels on each side as opposed to 15. See how much room that gives us? Okay, that saves a lot of space. Crams things together a little bit, but it shows us that that is sort of in the ballpark of what we're looking for. The next most important thing that this tells us is the style sheet and the line that this particular style that we need to adjust, where it's located. It's located, if we hover over, it tells us the full path. So all the stuff on my desktop, but at the end it says basically site styles shared.css line 316. So as you start to get into some of the more advanced updates, you'll be going into the site and the styles folder quite often, And here is where all your style sheets are located. The ones you'll be in the most would be the shared, the base, the desktop, or the components. Everything else, very rare that you would need to go in and make any changes. These are the style sheets that have the majority of the styles that you'll be editing, if at all. In this case, we go into the shared, and it gave us a line number. It said 316. Now, to find that line, you can, I'm just going to close this. You can scroll down the old-fashioned way, or just control G on the keyboard, or Command G, and their go-to number, just 316. Hit enter. It takes us right down to where we're looking for. There's the padding, just like we saw it in the inspect element, and there's the 15. We'll just change that to 5, and this one here to 5. We'll just knock the 1 off. We'll save it, we'll update it, and that'll be our new setting across the board on every page.